Well, hey there, fellow streakers. It's Jeff and Jamie with you one more time. Streaking away, but not that kind of streaking.
The true meaning of streaking.
Which is?
Being intentional and conscious and consistent in small actions that will be able to change your life.
It will. It will change your life quite significantly. We are in the middle of, just to give you a little update, we just sold the house. The house is now off the market because it's been sold, and we are going to be moving to Colorado in just a little over 6 weeks. And it's been a little bit crazy. So we've been talking this month. The reason I bring that up is we've been talking this month about times and seasons.
Yes.
And a move is quite the season or the shift in seasons of your life. I mean, to go from one place to another place is quite significant. I mean, haven't you thought that as far as our move is concerned, keeping everything moving forward? And
it's interesting because the reason we're moving is, in my mind, a little bit of change of seasons in our life. Like, we're moving so that we can, our daughter is having our first grandbaby, and we wanted to be a little bit closer to the kids as they start to have kids. And to me, that's a major shift. That's a different season of life for me.
You were doing grandkid math. And basically what you were doing is looking at it and saying, okay, where are they going to be and where am I? And therefore, I will be where they are.
I am outside the parameter of where I want to be. Therefore, we are moving.
We are moving. We are going to where the grandkids are. So it's kind of interesting to think about, too, because I still do not consider myself
This has been a season.
Age.
I know. This has been a change of seasons that I'm like, are we sure we're there? I never thought we'd get to this part.
No, I didn't think that I would advance
That's
in years to that place.
all old people that talk about that, not me.
And I'm an old person.
I'm an old person now.
Maybe. I don't know. I still feel young at heart, though. Mm-hmm. Isn't that what old people say?
I know.
So anyway, we are talking about times and seasons. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about, before I do that, the show today that we call it Leveling Up.
Nice.
All right. And leveling, but it's bad. It's not nice. But leveling up is bad. I mean, I think you like the title of the show.
I like the title.
But leveling up, we're going to talk about that. And before we get to that, though, I want to do a couple of call outs. One of them is something that we called out on Instagram. You'll notice if you've been following us on Instagram that we will take and highlight a streak. And with that, we'll say how many days that streak has been alive. One of the streaks that caught my eye, I just want to read to you a little bit about it, was this one. It's 110 days old, and the individual who reported to us is Lori on our Lori call, and little shout out there. It says it right on Instagram.
Nice.
So she knows it.
Hey, Lori.
Yep. So Streaking Mastery. Okay, sorry, to Streaking Mastery. She logs into her back office of her home business at least once daily. It says, I check my back office every day. We're in the middle of an intense home remodel. Thankfully, my home business can handle less attention during times of personal stress. I started this streak to keep my eye on things so I can catch problems before they get out of hand. It is a laughably simple streak, but it keeps me engaged in my business.
I love that. So again, going through a different season of life, remodeling your home, and that's a really great one, because when you're remodeling your home, you are upending everything that's normal in your life. You're having to tweak everything. And the way that she said that is so great. I'm able to keep my eye on it so that I can catch major problems before they become major.
Absolutely.
And streaking allows her to be able to do that while still recognizing the season that she's in, which is, I'm in a season of remodel.
Yes.
It's going to be, I'm under construction.
Which brings us to the topic at hand, leveling up. So just a story, something that we were discussing a little bit about how, and when I say we, one of the things that we do on a weekly basis is we meet with our streaking team and talk about, where the business is going, but also what we're doing methodology-wise and how we're continuing to keep clear on methodology. And as we were having this discussion, we were talking about laughably simple again, keeping it or making your streak laughably simple. And as we were talking about making your streak laughably simple, Talon had mentioned and said, it's interesting because if you start to level up everything, in other words, if you start to consider that my streak isn't hard enough, I need to make it harder, because right. I had a conversation previous to this where, and I think you'd had one too, but I had a conversation with, when do you make this harder? When do you level up, if you will? And it was in relation to, sorry, it just hit my brain. It was in relation to a question that I had on a keynote that I did for a sales team. And the sales team, one of the individuals, and creative, ambitious, talented people never want to keep things simple. They always want to make it a little bit harder. They always want to level up. And so they asked, when do you make this just a little bit harder? Mm-hmm. And I responded very emphatically and very quickly that you always keep it simple. Keep it laughably simple. You keep the streak laughably simple, because as soon as you start to level up, if you will, that's when you start to set yourself up for potential disaster. Mm-hmm. And so I was talking to Talon about this, and Talon said this. He said, if you think about it, if you continue to level up, pretty soon you're going to be homeless, starving, and cold. And I didn't understand that right away. And I'm like, what do you mean? He says, well, instead of, for example, say, contacting at least just one person daily if you're a sales representative, well, you got to level up. So now you do 2, now you do 3, now you do 5, now you do 10, now you do 12, now you do 20, now you do 25. Now you're on 30, 40, 100. Where do you stop on the level up? And as soon as you get there, guess what? If that's all you do, you're not going to pay your bills, so you'll be homeless. You're not going to buy clothing, so you'll be cold, and you're going to be starving because you're not going to buy food, because you've leveled up so significantly much. And I think that is, that really brings into context and understanding one of the difficulties that we face as individuals is this whole idea that we always have to be improving. But improving in the sense of, I need to do more, not be consistent. It's right. If I'm not doing more of the thing, then I'm not really improving. Whereas,
like, we've created some kind of environment where more carries more weight than consistency. Mm-hmm. And so I consistency,
totally, that's exactly right.
Consistency isn't enough, even though we talk about it all the time. We talk about how important being consistent is, but even in this, what happens is consistency isn't enough.
Right.
I mean, okay, great. So once I'm consistent, when do I add more?
Yeah.
When do we get to the point that I add more so that I'm really,
I appreciate
so that I look
what you're
good.
saying, but I appreciate what you're saying, but when do I add more?
When do I add more? And the idea that you could never add more is, I think it's scary for us. I think it's scary to think, what do you mean? What if I never add more? And so it's this idea that you're just like, well, what? I'm just going to be mediocre forever. I'm just going to mediocre. And I think we're afraid that if we say that to ourselves, that we are literally going to be like, well, I'm just going to let myself be average, not recognizing that the consistency, that focusing on being consistent adds these other things to life, that there will be times that you stretch and go for more. Mm-hmm. But the streak is always the laughably simple.
It's the foundation.
It is
it's
the foundation.
Thing on which you build. It is because, and this relates to the times and seasons of our lives. Like, for example, what Lori was saying there with remodeling the house. If anyone has ever been through a remodel, you know how intense that can be. All of your clothes are taken out of the house because, let's say you're remodeling the master bedroom, bathroom, closet, whatever it is.
Or the kitchen. When you're remodeling the kitchen, I mean, your plumbing is turned off. The kitchen is kind of the heart of the home because we have to eat so often. You're remodeling that, everything gets turned upside down.
Absolutely, which I think about, just another story here is, speaking of remodeling, Jamie had gone out of town and I decided to go ahead and refinish the hardwood floors.
I still laugh at this. Can we just say that again? Is anybody else laughing at this? Let me just say that again. Jamie went out of town and I decided to refinish the hardwood floors.
They were needing to be done. I knew that if she were here, she would just be...
She would say, no.
Yes, she would.
It's not a good time.
So we sent her out of town. Actually, we didn't. But
I went out of town voluntarily. And you said, I'm going to refinish the hardwood floors. And our kids even said, Dad's gone crazy.
Dad's lost it. So with that, we pulled everything out, and which meant the kitchen, the fridge, everything else we moved.
Anything
into
that's
the family
touching
room.
the hardwood floor has to be moved.
Had to be moved, and that was a crazy, crazy time because it disrupted the patterns of life.
Yes,
and that disruption can be quite detrimental to some of the improvement that you want to do, especially when you are looking at leveling up. So let's just say, for example, you and I have had the streak of run or walk at least 1 mile 6 days a week for 6 years. We started March 23rd, 2015, and have not broken that streak. Now, let's just say that we leveled that streak up. Let's say that in year 3, we thought, you know what?
We've been doing
running or
one.
walking. We've been doing running or walking, at least one. Let's make it 3.
Well, let's start with 2.
Okay.
In year 3, we'll start with 2. And then we do that for a year. And in year 4, we're like, you know what? Let's do 3 miles.
And so we've now, we've been leveling up the streak. All right. What then happens? Okay. So now we're in this massive remodel. And it's, like what Lori was saying or anyone else, I'm in this massive remodel. And I worked on with the kids from sun up to sundown, all of the hardwood floors. And I was tired.
Yeah.
It was something that I was really tired about. Now, had I leveled up, or had you and I leveled up, I think I would have broken the streak.
Well, and now 1 mile isn't good enough anymore.
So true.
And that's because now you've leveled up to 3. And the other thing too is that if we've been running 3 miles every day nonstop, what if we get injured? What if, do you know what I mean? This level up, you just are increasing the odds in order to maintain. So again, we're talking about maintaining consistency across the board through all. So when you level up, but still expecting yourself to maintain the same level of consistency, we just have to recognize something in life has to give.
And the reason why you and I are talking about that and why it comes is because of the times and seasons of life. Yes. So I'm going to continue with like what you're saying. If I leveled up during the remodel, then I don't think I would have kept the streak alive.
Nope,
now, is that important? And the answer is yes, because what it would have done is I would have then communicated to myself that I'm a failure.
Yep.
That I can't do hard things. That somehow, for whatever reason, because I couldn't keep this streak alive, I am now an unworthy person.
Or the other thing I think sometimes that happens, sorry I interrupted you.
No, go ahead.
Is that we get mad. Well, maybe the other people don't do this, but I do this. I get mad and I'm like, well, of course I can't do 3 miles right now. I've got this and this and this and this going on. And I feel like I need to lash out at these people, these invisible people that are expecting these things of me because they don't understand that I've got this and this and this going on. And usually I say invisible people because no one is expecting it of me. It's me. But there's this feeling of anger that I need to justify why I can't live at that same level. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
Maybe that's just a me thing.
I was pausing for dramatic effect. Because I agree.
But I think either one of those things happens. We get mad and we feel like we have to justify that these other things are happening in our life and they're important. Or like you said, we look and we're like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I keep doing this? Mm-hmm. I was able to do it before.
Mm-hmm. And I can't do it now.
Why can't I do it now?
Well, the times and seasons have changed.
Yep.
And there's different things that are going on.
Times they are changing.
That's what they are. I mean, I look at during the pandemic, there were all kinds of upheavals that were happening then, kept the streaks alive. And I feel really good about it. Now, there were days that I did the streak, for example, writing at least one sentence daily. I did that. I wrote the sentence and I wrote several more. And there were other days where I just wrote the sentence. For example, when we were remodeling and refinishing the floors, I was basically doing some of the simpleness of the streak.
Right.
However, I always come to a point in my head when I start talking about this idea of obsessing over the streak. And I actually had this question, another recent keynote that I did, an individual came up to me afterward and said, well, what if the streak starts to run your life? Mm-hmm. And you start to be run by the streak and you've got to do something. And he gave me an example. He said, my teenage daughter, she basically had a streak of Snapchat streak. And by the way, Snapchat kind of grabbed onto this whole streak thing and kept it very much alive. And so all of his teenager and her friends and everyone else were like, we got to keep the Snapchat streak alive. Well, he said, there came a point where I was like, okay, this is ridiculous. Not just the Snapchat, but she was on her device too much or whatever. And so he decided to take it alive. And she got visibly and physically upset because it would break her streak. Mm. So I get to this place in myself and I think, okay, am I obsessing over this streak to keep it alive? And here's, as I was talking to him, this is what came and what I've thought about quite often. When you are pointing a streak at something that's valuable to you, or it's pointed at who you want to be, I never obsess over it. I always consider it a blessing to be able to do the streak. Because, for example, when I want to be a writer, I want to then writing a sentence, it's a welcome respite from all the other things that I had in that day, because it's the one thing that grounds me and points me to who I want to be. So do I want to keep that streak alive? Yes. Am I obsessing over it? No, because obsession often is, I believe, paired with something that is bad. It's not a good thing to obsess over something. But what I do is I look at the streak of writing at least one sentence or any of the other several streaks that I have and say, are they pointing me to who I want to be? So with the dad that came up to me and talked about the streak of Snapchat, what he realized and what she eventually realized is that I don't want to be a professional Snapchatter.
This isn't what I want to be. I don't want to be a person who's on Snapchat for the rest of my life.
What I want to be is, a individual who is progressing and learning in life. Mm-hmm. And if I'm an individual who's progressing and learning in life, I don't know that Snapchat adds to that.
Right.
And so therefore, I'm going to remove that streak and replace it or start another streak that does point me to who I want to be. So in actuality, so here we talk about the good part of leveling up, if you will. I don't level up the streak, write one sentence daily, but what I may do is put another streak in there that allows me to continue to progress to who I want to be. So for example, to my write at least one sentence daily and that's been 1,610 days that I've been doing that, I added, for example, review at least one vocabulary word daily. Or here's another one, open the Masterclass app at least once daily. So in that sense, now I'm starting to level up to who I want to be, not level up the intensity.
So as you're talking, I've had two thoughts in regard to becoming obsessive about something. So the first one is, if you're becoming obsessive about a streak, the first with the example of the father talking about his teenage daughter, in that the question was, is the streak pointing me to the person I want to be? So one of the foundational tenets of streaking is that you streak to become who you want to be. Going back to when we very first were questioned about this, are you just streaking to streak? Are you just, Snapchat, are you just streaking to streak? What is it about Snapchat that's helping you become the person you want to be? And is that, and I was even thinking about it, I thought, is there a place for a switch in thought where I want to be connected with my friends, and so I'm doing this to stay connected? Is there a place where is in the asking the question, is this helping me become who I want to be? Is there a question that we're asking ourselves about balance within that I want to maintain a level of balance and harmony in my life, and recognizing that who I want to be can help me to maintain that.
That's a really good point.
And so that was my first thought, is that...
That's a really good point.
My second thought was in conjunction with the leveling up, that because I've had another experience where someone was saying, their spouse said, you're done with this streaking thing, you're obsessing over it, it's too much. And as I talked to him, it was the example that they were leveling up. They were looking at... the actual streak. Yes, and looking at... And what had happened is I was able to maintain this level before, why can't I now? Because they had leveled up and were able to maintain it, but then when they had a change in seasons, they weren't able to maintain it, but they were trying to. And so it was creating all kinds of frustration. And so recognizing and saying, leveling up is not what we're trying to accomplish. There will be times and seasons that maybe you want to set a goal around something. So, and I thought about this as you were talking with our streaks. Okay, we had the goal to finish the floor by a certain time. We were, it's not finished. We got to finish it. We've got a week to finish it. So that was a goal. Mm-hmm. But in the midst of working on that goal, we're still able to maintain our streaks. You may also have a goal that's centered around your streaks. Like, I want to, I don't know, I can't think of one right now. Like, I want to write a book. Yeah. That's a goal. I want to write a book, but in the completing of that goal, you're still doing the streak. Mm-hmm. And so recognizing where a streak is, that the make it laughably simple and keep it laughably simple. You can add goals to that if you want to, but goals are meant to be that, maybe that time of leveling up for a period of time, but it's not the way that you're going to stay consistent. If you're constantly trying to level up, you're going to sacrifice consistency because it's not, you can't always be leveling up and be consistent.
Just a pause there, because the thoughts that I love talking with Jamie because she inspires all these other thoughts that start to come to my mind, and I want to go into all kinds of different places, and we're running out of time.
Reminds me of that thing. If you like her, you should marry her. You did.
I did 30 years ago, which our 30-year anniversary is coming up on August 3rd. I'm so excited to celebrate 30 years. Woo!
I said that the other day, and my son whipped his head around and he goes, 30 years? Like,
that's right.
Are you really that old? Has it really been that long? Yep, it's really been that long.
Yeah, it is. So talking about leveling up, there we go.
No, we've been consistent.
We've been consistent. That's it.
We've been up and down and up and down, but we've been consistent.
So just tying this off and putting a bow on it, hopefully, as far as leveling up is concerned, if I were to say to any streaker out there or anyone that's starting their streak, I think that the ego gets in the way of the consistency. The quality, the desire to have quality or to have more of, or the intensity gets in the way of the consistency. And what happens then is you give up on the consistency rather than giving up on the intensity. Well, so you keep the intensity alive and you get hurt or injured, or the time and season of your life changes, and guess what? You let go of all of it. But what I think what ultimately happens is inside of myself, I start to doubt myself. This is one of the things that I look back on streaking, before we were streaking and before we were streakers. Trying all the different recommended ways of, setting another goal and striving for that goal, and then also, trying to form a habit. All of those things were ultimately frustrating, because every single book that's out there that I see that talks about goals or habits it's always about leveling up. Mm-hmm. That if you're not leveling up, you're not getting better. And I couldn't disagree more. After the 6 years of streaking, of writing at least one sentence daily, or reading at least one paragraph in a nonfiction book daily, I've accomplished more than I thought I ever would. And more importantly, I feel great.
And that's what I was going to say, is you don't focus so much on the accomplishment as much as you focus on, okay, I'm actually becoming the person I want to be. I'm becoming a writer. I'm becoming well-read. Mm-hmm. I'm not going around saying, I've read 50 books.
Yeah.
You start to look at it and you view yourself differently as a person. And that changes the way that you interact in life.
Well, if you'd like to get in on the conversation, we'd love to hear from you. My name is Jeffrey, and you can reach me at Jeffrey, Jefffery, at streakingmastery.com, or
I'm Jamie at JAMI at streakingmastery.com, or you can follow us on Instagram or Pinterest or Facebook. You can also download the app at the Apple Store or Google Play. You can also go to our website, streakingmastery.com. We have lots of blog posts on there and that's great, articles that go into a little bit more depth.
Yeah. So until we talk next time,
keep streaking.
It's too simple.